Excellent. Okay. All right. We all talk about self, and we have so many different characteristics within. I'm not going to go through this. I don't have time. So basically, independent self-control would be you can be unique. You could express yourself the way you want it. You realize your own attribute. You promote your own goals. And be direct, say what you have on your mind. On the other hand, you feel you need to belong, you want to fit in, and then you have engage in proper action so that promote others' goals. And so that was just one author. But I mean, just give you some ideas of differences of individuals, whether they place themselves in, okay, I am who I am. But if you are raised in a collectivistic society, and you can't afford to do that because everybody demands so much of you, right? And on the other hand, how could you develop your individual skills, strength, if you are completely, talk about other people's goals and behave the way that other people want you to behave? That's difficult, isn't it? So that's why we need to understand where people are coming from. And even in cognitive thinking, and we talk about, black and white linear, we talked about that, and then in the ancient Asian or Oriental thinking is very different because you're together, right? Okay. This is what I like about John Barry's acculturation. And he's a professor at Queens, and he's retired now. And he started, I think this is not a very good picture, so I added this one. Can you see this? No. Okay, I'll read it. Okay, people coming into, like we talked about last time, people are coming from another country into North America. And how many times that we see people having difficulties acculturating in the majority society, especially when family, the first generation immigrants. And let's talk about, for example, the Asian people come in. And the parents used to say, okay, we gave up our jobs, we gave up our comfort, our language, and everything else because we want you to have a better future, to the children. And so when they come to Canada, so they struggle. You have seen professors working in the laundry room, and you see people who are rich, they have to do something so that they could learn a little more about this culture. So what happened to the second generation? The children? At 3:30, you come home. You do your homework. You play your piano. Next day, you go to Taekwondo. And then Wednesday, you go to Chinese school. And and you just occupy. But the kids will come home and say, Mom, could we go to play? All my friends are, on the football field and they're playing. Could we go to play? No, right? So it is very difficult for children to live in a home that is maintained, that is still the original culture, and educated in another culture, and then try to bring the two things together. That is not an easy job, is it? So, what John Barry was saying, okay, there are different groups. One, you have a choice. You want to maintain your culture of origin. And you reject, okay, you maintain your culture and identity, but you also want to relate among the other groups. In other words, there's two ways of doing it. You either maintain your own original culture, or you're going to be absorbed in the majority culture. But it's not so easy, is it? Not just say, well, I want to do this or I want to do that. So people, most of the time, would be a little bit of this and a little bit of that. There's nothing wrong with that, with it. So I always say, you bring part of your culture into the majority culture, the part that is good, right? And then you take, and that is what we do is called integration. You integrate part of your culture and then majority culture. Does it make sense? Yes.
Can I just share a little bit about like my personal experience with that? Because I feel like I'm kind of going through that process right now in my.
That's what I want. I'm just giving you stimuli so that I could get, some of your feedbacks.
Yeah, because I've been living in Sarnia, which is a town of about 70,000 people. And I spent the majority of my high school and kind of developmental years in living in big cities. So living in Toronto, living in Vancouver. So living in these cities where everything is very quick and everyone kind of lives in that own kind of like individual bubble. And going to a small town where people have where a lot of my colleagues have kind of been born and bred in the area, right? Raised. That's so to me, and the idea that like everybody kind of knows them. So it's that integration piece that I'm kind of like experiencing right now in terms of being this really independent person and kind of living this life where you can control where you bump into people and how you bump into people or where you live and work. So in Toronto you can live on one side of the city and work in the other side of the city and have very different pieces of life, and in Sarnia it doesn't work like that. In small towns it's very much a blend, right? You live and you work and you bump into people, and so just kind of figuring out how to integrate into that different culture, that different way of living, that different where you go to church and you see somebody, and you go to work and you see someone, or you meet somebody, like just kind of how all those different parts of life overlap in just a different way. I don't know if I'm being clear at all, but that's kind of like my experience of that integration piece.
How do you feel about that?
It was really uncomfortable in the beginning, right? It was really like I really had to kind of sit and take like an observation of what culture and kind of take an inventory almost of what the culture of the city is and what the culture that I'm entering into is, and figure out kind of what you're speaking to, like the best way that I can enter into that culture in a way that is comfortable and safe, but
so you have to make a lot of adjustments.
Yes, yeah, a lot of adjustments, and still ongoing, right? It's still,
Of course.
It's only a year, so I feel like just in the last few months, I've been able to start
more comfortable in it, and you find yourself you do not betray yourself.
Yes.
And then you also absorb something from the other culture.
Yeah.
Yes, Noreen.
I also have experienced this being a convert to Islam, and having moved to a small community of 19,000. I'm the only Muslim person in the area, and talk about getting looks. However, trying to integrate my Islamic self with my past even, and people who've known me in my past, and even within my family, because I'm the only one who has converted to Islam, and everyone else is Catholic. So it makes it very difficult, and I've lost contact kind of with my brothers because of it. So it makes it very difficult to know who I'm supposed to be, where I am, and etc. Yeah.
Right. So this is what we were talking about. Yes, I want to maintain my heritage, and I also wanted to be part of the majority. So you integrate, that's what, Deidre? Raidra. But some of the people say, okay, I have come from, Far East. I do not want my culture. I want this majority culture. I abandon my original identity, my culture, so you are assimilated into the majority culture. In other words, you're no longer Chinese, you are white, right? And so you're being absorbed, and you're being assimilated. But on the other hand, and you say, okay, now I wanted to maintain my culture, but I do not want anything to do with the majority culture. So you separate yourself from the majority. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And we see a lot of situations like that. Then you say, okay, I really don't want to continue with my old original culture, and then I also don't like this majority culture. So what would happen? You're marginalized. Where do I fit in? Right? And so, Deidre? Raidra, I'm sorry, I've got to think about the R. Yeah, you are integrated, right? Mm-hmm. And how would you describe yours?
I would say marginalized.
You just feel marginalized because you discover something new and you absorb into that.
Yes, I have absorbed into the Islamic culture somewhat. However, I'm not totally accepted because I am a convert. And there's some issues that happen there with those who are born Muslims versus converts. And I live outside of the major community, outside of Windsor. So I'm not really attached to any mosque. And then I'm isolated at home because there's no other Muslims in the area.
How do you feel about that?
Very sad and lonely.
Sad and lonely.
Yeah.
See?